Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kings of Fantasy Football. I'm your co-host Pablo, and here's my co-host.
Leo.
So, on today's episode, we are going to discuss starts slash sits for this upcoming week 8, or week 8 technically started yesterday. Let's dive right in, starting off with quarterbacks. So, the quarterback that I would start, I feel like he's gonna pretty much be like a must start every week. So props to everyone who's a Dak Prescott manager. He has been lights out since week 4. The lowest amount of touchdowns he's thrown is 3, and he's normally averaging around the 250 yards. Even more now with the return of CeeDee Lamb. Even though people are gonna say, "Oh, he has a tough matchup," I don't think you can afford to bench him. He's the quarterback number 3 overall. So to me, he's a must start pretty much the rest of the year. How about you, Leo?
My quarterback to start this week is going to be Bo Nix. Um, he he's got a very juicy matchup this week as he's going up against the the Dallas Cowboys, who are allowing the most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. They Mr. Nix has uh this past week had a excellent matchup with the Giants, and he scored 43 fantasy points. But previously, he only had 19 and 15 fantasy points respectively. And then the week after, week 4, he had against Cincinnati, which is another favorable match. He had 33. So whenever he has a favorable matchup, he does capitalize on that. And I see that him fulfilling that prophecy and scoring a lot of points for fantasy managers this week.
Yeah, totally agree. That was probably one of the craziest games I've seen um, ever, even though I didn't watch the whole thing, but was keeping up with it. And, being 19 points down fourth quarter, he was a big reason why they came back in that game. And I agree, it should be a good matchup against the Cowboys. Now, the quarterback that I would sit is going to be my um, hometown QB of CJ Stroud. After the bye week, thinking that they would be fresh and have a good game plan going into Seattle. It's the same old, same old. They couldn't block. So until they figure out something with that offensive line, um, I'm not. Even if I had him, I would not start him. And they have a tough matchup against that San Francisco defense led by Robert Saleh. Um, and then no Nico, so definitely would sit him. What about you?
Well, the easy answer of who this is definitely Tua Tagovailoa. If you're starting him, you're in bad shape. But yeah, that's the easy answer. But no, seriously. Um, so one matchup that I'm very intrigued this week. And even though it might be favorable, but I think it's gonna be like a defensive struggle, and that's gonna be Jordan Love. They got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming to town. Mr. Aaron Rodgers also. Well, they're going to be, they're going at Pittsburgh. So I think that's going to be a tremendous matchup. Both defenses are for also Green Bay is a topper echelon of defense this season, and I think it's just going to be a like a not a high scoring game. So I think Jordan Love, if you have to start him, just temper those expectations. But I think it's going to be a low scoring affair.
Okay. Moving on to running backs. I think this is probably going to be one of the only weeks that I get to say this about this running back, and I would start Chase Brown, even though he has been very lackluster the entire season. But if he doesn't do well against the Jets, who are winless, I don't know if he's going to do well at all this year. So this would probably be one of the only weeks again that I'm going to say just start Chase Brown. What about you?
the the running back. I'm gonna say a couple running backs. Really quick. One is the Tyler Algier. Obviously, Bijan Robinson is going to go crazy. I think they're going to pull ahead, and I think Tyler Algier is also going to be able to get fantasy points from fantasy managers this week. They the the Dolphins are allowing the third most fantasy points to running backs this season, and like I said, I think they're gonna be pulling ahead. I don't think they're gonna need Bijan that much. They're gonna pull ahead, and then Tyler should be able to. They've allowed multiple running backs to score previously, and I think that should continue. Another running back to maybe think also starting is Rashard Smith. He's been getting more touches lately, and the more snap share as the season has gone, and he's got a nice matchup on Monday night with the Commanders. So like if you need a deep like both these guys are flex plays. Like there's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of uh, uh, teams on bye. So these are like more flex plays there. If you have some tough decisions to go with your roster this week.
All right, now the running back that I would sit, even though he's been phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if most people drafted him or picked him up before the season started when they announced him as a starter. I'm talking about Javonte Williams. He has a tough matchup against Denver, who's the number 2 fantasy defense currently. Dallas's defense not great, but Denver is kind of like the total opposite. So if you can afford to sit him, I would definitely sit Javonte this week. What about you, Leo?
One running back I'm looking to bench if I can, but like I said, a lot of people on teams on buy, but is Tony Pollard. Little by little, Tyjae Spears has come and gained some more momentum and getting more touches, but they're also playing against the Indiana Indianapolis Colts that they're allowing the 29th most least fewest fantasy points to running backs this season. So yeah, I just see that's going to be a struggle for them this week for Pollard to get anything going this week.
Yeah, we've talked about Colts defense, a few times so far this year, so definitely agree with that. Now, moving on to receivers, kind of goes hand in hand with Leo's quarterback to start. I'm going to choose his number 1 receiver to start, which is Courtland Sutton. Even though he hasn't been scoring that many touchdowns, he's still getting a lot of targets. And like Leo said, the Cowboys are allowing the most fantasy points to QB, so that should translate, to his top receiver last week against the Giants. He had 10 targets, 6 catches for 87 yards. He has not scored in the last 3 weeks, so prime matchup for him to at least get a touchdown or more than one. What about you, Leo? Leo, what about you? What wide receiver would you start?
Yeah, I wanted to. My bad. I was muted. My bad. I was like, why can't you hear me? No. Yeah. So yeah, the receiver that I'm gonna start this week is gonna be Devontae Smith. I just heard that AJ Brown was labeled out for the week, and anytime that AJ Brown is out, usually Devontae Smith pulls the slack. So they have a nice matchup this week going up against the Giants. That we kind of spoke about earlier that the Broncos lit them up last week, and that could continue this week with the Eagles. So Devontae Smith is my start for the week. I receive.
Yeah, he finally had a breakout game last week. Who knows how many people actually started him because Devontae is one of those like hit or miss guys, but especially with AJ Brown being out, all the targets in theory should go to him. So I agree with that. Now the wide receiver that I would sit is going to be the rookie McMillan, and the reason for that, Bryce Young's status is still up in the air as far as I know. So if Andy Dalton does start, he kind of has a little bit of a relationship with Xavier Legette. So Legette may benefit from Dalton starting, which may hinder McMillan. So for those reasons, I would say McMillan. What about you?
All right, so the receiver I'm gonna sit this week that he's kind of been hot over the last couple of weeks is Kendrick Bourne. He's kind of delivering like wide receiver 2 numbers, but this past week, well, even though he didn't get anything, George Kittles is back, Juwan Jennings is back, and Kendrick Bourne I think is gonna start going down the totem pole. I know he has a great rapport with Mac Jones from his days in with New England, but I think it's gonna start coming right down to earth as well. There's yeah, I just think that's it. He's gonna have a tough time getting all those targets that he's been getting with these guys back.
Yeah. With especially like I said with Kittle and stuff, so it's gonna lead to less targets for him. Now moving on to tight ends. I went with this tight end just because of the matchup, and I'm not trying to pick on your Dolphins, but I would say start Kyle Pitts. Now, that being said, I was not aware that Penix may not play, so if he doesn't, I don't know if Kirk Cousins will throw it to him as much. So Pitts is a start if Penix plays, probably not if Cousins starts. What about you?
Yeah, I did hear that he was gonna play, so I think it should be good with that with that there. Yeah, gonna go with this week. What my start of the week is gonna be Kate Otten. With last week, Kate Otten kind of blew up a little bit with after Mike Evans went down with a collarbone injury. Chris Godwin is still out, and Otten had a phenomenal week last week. He scored at least 10 fantasy PPR points in the last 3 games, and with Amika getting most of the attention, Otten should be able to work the inside and definitely come through for excuse me for fantasy managers this week.
Yeah, especially with someone has to catch the ball. It can't just be a Buka and Johnson every time. So I agree with Otten. Now the sit for the tight end, some people kind of scratch their head, but I am only basing it off that his starting QB is out, and I'm talking about Zach Ertz. So Daniels is not going to play, which leaves Mariota to start. Even though Ertz has been scoring the last 2 weeks, having another QB behind center, who knows if he'll still be looking Ertz's way. So for those reasons, I would sit Ertz. What about you?
Oh man, you stole my guy, man. Come on, man.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna mention. That's all right. So let me see here. All right, so yeah, we're gonna go with let's go with even though it's I know you guys are gonna start him. Well, just maybe temper the expectation a little bit, and that's Jake Ferguson. He's playing against they're playing Denver, and they allow the 25th fewest points to to tight ends this season, and so it's just gonna be a tougher match. I know you're gonna start, you have to start them, but just like I said, just temper the expectations because it might be a little tough this week.
All right. Now, this defense I just chose because of the matchup. And I would start the Falcons against Miami. Like you were saying, you mentioned that even LG should get some points just because they're probably going to be, ahead. Who knows? This year in the NFL, I feel like it's just been really crazy as far as upsets and underdogs. But I would still start Falcons defense. What about you?
Um, yeah, definitely. That's probably the number one pick to call out this week. And yeah, I was gonna say the Colts, but they're like 92% rostered. So yeah, and they're playing the Tennessee Titans, who are just a turnover machine lately. That's something definitely a defense to start if you got them. And another defense to start is Kansas City. Even though they're playing Washington, who allow the 20th fewest points to team defenses. But like you kind of mentioned, they're gonna be without Daniels this week, and that offense isn't the same when he's not there. So those are a couple of defenses that I'll start if you have.
Yeah. The other one or the route that I thought you were gonna go is the Bills, since they haven't really had a breakout game. Now the defense that I would sit, again, some people may kind of question it just based off the performance that they had last week, but I would sit the Browns. They're going to be facing Drake May, who has been on fire pretty much this whole season. Week 6, he threw for 261, 3 touchdowns. Last week, 222 and 2 touchdowns. Mike Vrabel went into New England and has done a really good job. They've had a really favorable schedule. Even though, again, Cleveland did well against the Dolphins, I think, the Patriots totally different team. So I would not start the Browns against the Patriots. What about you?
A team defense that they've done decent recently. Even last week that they had a favorable matchup last week against the Saints, but this week I would bench the Bears. They're going to be playing Baltimore, and Baltimore is getting healthy very fast. Lamar Jackson is back, and Derrick Henry should be good to go. So yeah, so I'll if you have the Bears, I would definitely just bench them this week because I think Baltimore's going to roll all over them this week.
Yeah, especially if Lamar's back, man. Watch out for the Ravens. So appreciate everyone tuning in. Please give us a like, follow, share the pod. Anyone who's interested in fantasy football. If you we're available on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, YouTube. If you have any questions, you can reach me on X. That would be at Archreaper, ARCHREAPR. Leo, where can they reach you?
Yeah, if you guys have any fantasy questions, start sit. Just you can reach me on X as Smooth1074.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace.